Now, I love movies, and at the weekend I was watching the 1968 classic Bullitt. And Bullitt features Steve McQueen, who is possibly one of my favourite actors. He's super cool. But even better than that is the car and the car chase sequence that's within the film. It features a Ford Mustang. Now, back in the real world, and a couple of days later after watching this movie, a friend of mine who owns a car dealership called Ellis Ashton Motors phoned me up and said, "You'll never guess what's just come in stock. This, the new Ford Mustang Bullitt." Now, Steve McQueen is a bit of a legend, but undoubtedly he is overshadowed in the film by the Ford Mustang GT that he drives, and in particularly during the 10 minutes and 53 seconds of time together that they share on screen during the car chase. But this isn't a film review, this is a car review, so let's crack on with it. But before we do, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button so you receive all the latest weekly releases. On British roads, Mustangs are unmistakable. The Bullitt is a fastback. It has a manual gearbox with a fancy cue ball selector, fancy green paint, just like the film, 6-piston Brembo sat behind 19-inch wheels, and a few less badges than the non-Bullitt Mustangs. What a beast, so let's give you a tour. The front end of this car is so imposing, it just looks so mean. You'll notice that there are these two air intakes on the bonnet which are real, and that really helps with the shape of the nose. Underneath that we've got this huge grille which, like the original car, has been debadged. And I think interestingly, the Mustang badge is as identifiable as the American flag, but even to non-car people, and without its badge, this vehicle is unmistakably a Mustang. If you were in the market for one of these cars, however, and feel shortchanged that Mustang have failed to give you a badge, don't worry. They've put a tiny little pony right here on the headlamp. And there we have it, the 5-litre V8 monster. What an impressive engine. But the one thing that is a little bit disappointing is there's no hydraulic struts, so you have to use your muscles to lift this thing up. What's going on there, Ford? The 5-litre V8 pumping 453 brake horsepower to the rear wheels. The throttle bodies have also been increased to allow for a rise in power. Moving on to the flank, and the first place to start are these huge brakes sat behind the 19-inch torque thrust wheels, which are designed to increase brake cooling and decrease wheel mass. The big brakes are part of the performance pack, which I believe comes as standard on the Bullitt, along with an upgraded suspension and sports exhaust, which sounds pretty decent. Not so good for your neighbours, but who cares about them? The Bullitt does have a boot, and it is pretty impressive for this type of car. But if you're interested in the Bullitt for its boot, then maybe you should be looking at a slightly cheaper and more practical Ford S-Max. Once in the cabin, the gear selector is the star of the show, but I must say that the finish in here is really good. Everything's leather covered, and we have this lovely steel effect dashboard which just feels very premium. I do like this digital display which has a horizontal rev counter, very fancy. To give you a tour of the center console, we've got these really well made pieces of switchgear where we've got the mode selector, the steering selector, traction control, hazard lights, and of course the engine start button. Above that we've got the climate control, and then our rather large central screen. This has got the Ford Sync technology, and I must say that this is quite an intuitive system to use. Absolutely everything can be controlled from here: your audio, your climate, your phone, your navigation, and the mobile apps. If we take a look at the glove box, it's pretty spacious. It fulfills all your glove box needs. There's also more storage here in the center console with this quite useful cubby hole, and there's a USB adapter and a cigarette lighter. One of my favourite touches in the cabin is the fact that there's green ambient lighting dotted about, so underneath the cup holders, in the handles and in the footwell, there's just a nice little bit of ambience when you're driving in the dark. Sure, you may not be able to see it now, but trust me, it's here. Being British, we all know that Americans can make cars look good, but they can't engineer them to go around corners. Not like British icons anyway. The engineers in America, they just simply don't drink enough tea to be able to craft the perfect performance car. Or do they? They may not drink tea, but they know how to make a Mustang. This thing is absolutely epic. In fact, I think I'll have to speak to Phil from Ellis Ashton about parts exchanging the DB9 for this thing. It is so much fun. We all know American muscle cars, and I must say that this generation of the Bullitt has certainly captured the spirit of the original vehicle. The roar of the V8, the weight of the vehicle, the ride, the handling, it just makes you smile when you're behind the wheel. Now, Phil from Ellis Ashton's been good enough to lend me this car from his stock, so I'm certainly going to treat it with respect when I'm driving it, on camera at least. But this car, trust me when I say, it's got so much power, but we're not going fast. We're going nice and steady, 30 miles an hour, 2 hands on the wheel, nice and steady. You turn that off there. Once you slip this car into sports mode, the steering really firms up, and once that's in place, you feel as though you've got enough confidence to use all the torque that's available under your right foot to enter pretty much any corner. But what's this car made for British roads? Well, sure, it's going to give you a slightly different experience to, let's say, a Porsche, but nevertheless, this car is technically good, and it's a real nice drive. So yeah, sure, it fits into our roads perfectly. If I was going to complain about anything, it'd be that the gearbox is a little bit clunky, but what we have to remember is all the power from this V8 is being pumped to the back wheels, and this is an American muscle car, so the clunky gearbox, in many ways, really helps the experience. This car can reach 62 miles an hour in 4.6 seconds and has a top speed of 155 miles an hour. For that one person that was interested in the size of the boot of this vehicle, you'll also be glad to know that you can achieve 22.8 miles per gallon. So there we have it, an American muscle car that lives up to all of your dreams. The Bullitt has it all: style, power and character. Thanks again to Phil from Ellis Ashton Motors for lending us this vehicle, and if you are in the market for something like this, then be sure to check them out. I've left their link in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week. I've got a really cool car in stock. The Nissan Bullitt, you know.